Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This week is show we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Batman Caped Crusader, Season 1, Episode 8. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, playing into the creepy factor of this episode, obviously, Carnival's always got to be used in that creepy manner, but the Natalia stuff, I was curious like where that was going because I wasn't familiar with it. Some really interesting backstory. Like her character, like I did a quick Google search, did not know this, and it's kind of interesting having this character in this series. Is originally she was going to be in the original Batman the Animated Series from the 90s, but apparently Fox did not like the whole idea of using like a vampire character or Batman becoming a vampire, so that got axed. So I guess that was also kind of like, right, we couldn't use her the way we wanted to before. And they made her vampiric in the fact that she can drain people's life force, but it's still kind of, I guess that's kind of their, I don't know. I don't know if that's just a decision they made. I was about to say, I was like, you would assume because it's on Prime Video that this would be okay, but I don't know. Maybe even, because it seemed like it was a Warner Brothers issue before. So I don't know. It might still be a thing because it's on they don't want I don't know what the reasons for that. Maybe they just artistically decided to make that choice here so it wouldn't get too bloody and stuff. Like maybe that was one of the reasons, but it's still, it might not be vampire-ish, but it's still vampire-ish in a regard. I almost wonder if it's supposed to be like comparable to like how Morbius is in the animated Spider-Man cartoon from the 90s. I wonder if it's kind of a similar thing in that capacity. But either way, I'm going on this tangent, but it's relevant, and I think it's really pertinent, really interesting. What's funny is, like, Anton is her brother in this continuity. In the comics, at least, like, her original, because the characters change. It was, like, pre-Crisis versus post-Crisis in New 52. Like, the pre-Crisis version, like, they were lovers. Like, her adopted father was Charles, and Anton was his son, and they ran away together and were in love, and were doing criminal stuff together. So it's just interesting change. I also did not remember that there was a version of the character in season 1 of Batwoman. I didn't remember. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, even having like the irritation to sunlight. In the comics, it was like a radioactive laser or something that gave her that situation. But in this, they made it like a specific illness that she had. So, but the reason why I'm also bringing it up and thinking it's so pertinent, first and foremost, we have Leslie Tompkins showing up. I'm like, hey! Obviously, my best association with the character is in the show Gotham, but it's like, yeah, she's an ally to Bruce. Whether she will play the same role, most likely not. It's just, hey, this was someone that was important in Bruce's life. She was there, and the fact is, we hear about, it's something I'd mentioned before, like, we never really hear too much of, like, the more charitable stuff that Bruce does, like, the more philanthropic. What we do in this case is, like, oh, he gives to an orphanage. It makes a lot of sense. So, he's like, oh, it's a tax write-off, but Leslie's like, oh, you can try and cover that up, but I know you can try and play it off, Buster, but I know who you really are, that you do it because you're caring, and you're trying to be super humble. Anyway, the reason why I'm going on this old diatribe is we have the kids that get kidnapped. All 4 kids are Bat Kids. Now, am I saying in this continuity these kids are going to grow up to become Bat Kids? No, but it's supposed to be winks and nod. It's like, oh, I didn't even realize it until Jace or Jason, because I was like, wait, what? Because at first it's like, oh, Dickie. I was like, didn't even register until we got to Jason. He's like, oh, my name's Jason. You call me Jason. I was like, huh? I'm like, Jason Todd? And then we got to Stephanie Brown. I was like, okay. And then we met the little girl, Carrie. I was like, it's meant to be a wink and nod to every bat, what? That's insane. The only reason why they couldn't do a Damien is because because that'd be Bruce's actual kid, so you can't really do that. But I don't know if that's implying like all 4 future Bat Kids. I mean, I know Dick Grayson is an orphan. I don't know about it. I'd assume Jason is, but I don't know. Funny enough, Natalia, like in one version of the comics, kind of became his mother, which is interesting. But that's also interesting too, because like Natalia has ties to the only ones she has ties to Stephanie Brown and Jason Todd. I don't think Carrie or Dick Grayson, but it's just interesting how like like I said, it's supposed to be like a wink and nod. I doubt these are going to be the future Bat Kids, but it almost feels like it could be. But like I said, like that's all there is to it. This continuity is its own thing, so it's not adherent to anything else. So if it wants to, they could. But I was like, oh, like all 4 people who are future Bat people just happen to be also part of the same orphanage situation too. So. Because that's also interesting, too, because, like, Stephanie, it's like, well, we know her dad's Clue Master, so either her dad's dead in this continuity and didn't become Clue Master, like, potentially the whole Deadshot doesn't exist in this continuity, or maybe a different character becomes Deadshot, so maybe her dad never became Clue Master because she is an orphan, or maybe he's already out of the picture and she's an orphan, but he's already in his villain bag, or maybe she never knew her dad, and he goes off and eventually becomes a... There's a lot, to read a lot into. I'm going on this massive diatribe, but I think it's still... relevant, just like funny and not funny, but interesting comic book stuff, just greater, like winks and nods. I think it's fascinating. It's kind of sad that the carnival ends up being the dark setting for this story of like, yeah, kids getting kidnapped. She's not killing the kids, she's draining their life. It seems like they do this probably everywhere they go. It's like, hey, you take a kid, you drain them, and then you bounce. But it's like the kids will be fine as long as Natalia doesn't come back to repeatedly feed on them. But I'm sure her brother was there to keep her in line. Hey, you feed on this kid, we leave them, they get found. Later on, it's fine and dandy. We're in the carnival, we've already moved on. So it seems like obviously this wasn't their first rodeo in that capacity. But Natalia was only supposed to take 1 kid, but then she took 2. And then she took 3, and then she tried to take 4. I guess it's just like, yeah, once she got that hunger... I guess it's also like the teenage in her, like, rebelling a little bit, not listening to her brother anymore. Who? Fucking voiced by Haley Joel Osment. I'm so bummed I didn't recognize it. I was like, now in retrospect, I was like, oh yeah, I hear a little bit of, like, him taking his voice to, like, a higher register. Not higher register, but, like, how he does Sora's voice now in Kingdom Hearts. Like, probably, like, the later games, but specifically, like, 2-1. But I'm probably mainly thinking of 3, like, how he, like... raises his voice up a certain level to be Sora, like here, because what I was mistaking it for was like the voice actor who plays Zim in Invader Zim. Just because I recently saw him in something, and I heard a twinge of it that sounded similar, but I'm so bummed at myself. I'm so disappointed I didn't realize that was Haley Joel Osment playing Anton, because I was curious what that whole deal was, because I at first thought he was a part of it. I also feel bad because like every time I see someone in that white lab coat, I'm like, Hugo Strange. But I was like, well, he's got a full head of hair. Isn't Hugo typically... I think he's typically bald. So I was... But, I didn't know if that's what they were going. But it's like, no, completely different character. But I thought, like, okay, I thought he was in on it, which he kind of is, because he's a brother looking out for his sister, but they're putting on this performance and stuff. You're part of the carnival. I would assume the rest of the carnival had no idea about what Natalia was up to or Anton. I don't think so. I think later on when they beat the crap out of Bruce, that was them just being protective. It's like, whoa, this guy's looking for some kids. I mean, you got to give praise to him. I'm like, okay, but it's also you're jumping the gun. You're not thinking any. Because also one of the girls was like, I don't know if they knew it was Natalia he was talking about, but still they did jump the gun. And it also seemed like one of the people that was a part of it. I'm pretty sure that was Killer Croc. So don't expect him to be like a mainstay villain in this continuity potential. Well, not unless the carnival comes back around and he broke bad or something like that. Who knows? It's also really interesting how it all like shakes out too, because of what the greater context is. Harvey's trying to use this as kind of like a, hey, look at what I'm doing for Gotham. I'm bringing the carnival. It's like, but is that really going to win you over? It's like, yeah, just kind of like having some fun and, Gotham having a little fun, and he's trying to like, boost himself up in that same regard. But it's like, truth be told, the whole events of this episode could have sank him, because it's like, yeah, you're the one that kind of pushed for the carnival. You're up there taking photos and stuff, and kids go missing. Especially because he was so caught up in the Thorn stuff, he wasn't paying attention when Leslie was like, yo, I got a kid missing. Can you help me? But it was actually Bruce that helped. Understandable, because he's going to listen when Leslie asks him for something, or just being like, oh, you need some help, as an orphan himself. Like, he's going to help look out for kids, He's going to be, I mean, that's why his sidekicks end up being what they are. They always talk about that strange relationship. Like, that's always the joke. I don't know if anything's ever taking it seriously. some things have kind of talked about, like, yo, you took in like some like damaged kids, and you took your approach of what happened to you as a kid that damaged you, made you into who you are. You forged other kids down that path, which is kind of effed up. That's as far as that goes. But it's like, yeah, he has a soft spot for orphans because he knows what they're going through and what they've been through. So it's like, yeah, I maybe not the exact thing, because they probably don't know exactly what he's been through, but he is always going to have a soft spot and see a lot of himself in it. But like I said, I think that speaks volumes that when he should have helped out, be actual the mayor and stuff, and proven himself good, he was so wrapped up in the thorn stuff, like the corrupt side of things kind of distracted him too much from doing actual good. But he apologized for it later on and was like, oh, I want to help. But then he found out, like, oh, Bruce is going missing too. He's like, Bruce Wayne. It's like, that's probably like his biggest concern of like, if I have one of like the most prominent billionaires in life, well, we don't know what his money situation is in this, because that's fluctuated too, because some storylines he's a millionaire, but because of inflation and over the years they've kind of boosted him up to a billionaire. But either way, it's a situation of like, yeah, you don't want one of Gotham's most prominent figures going missing at a carnival that you kind of like pushed for. So it's like the optics of it wouldn't look good, which we'll talk about Harvey's side of things later on. But Bruce gets suited up and goes after Natalia, which sadly she killed her brother. At first it was kind of like dark because she just paralyzed him. She pushed him so hard, like probably like broke his spine or something, and because stuff fell on him. He's like, I can't feel my legs. He's like, please go get help. And just once again, she was having a tantrum because it's like, okay, you're telling me what to do. Stop it. Like, you're my brother and you're not my dad. Because he's trying to tell her not to go down this route, because it's like, because she's becoming more and more of a monster in this moment. And she thought she just hurt her brother. I was like, when Bruce shows up later and he's like, please, like, get my sister out of his son before she's lost forever, and he dies. I was like, it seemed like he passed out. His eyes are wide open. He died. I was like, wow, him getting paralyzed was already dark. Him just straight up dead. I was like, oh, she didn't realize she had did that. So I was like, that's super dark. I do think it's interesting out of any of the kids. Obviously, Kelly, Carrie, but Carrie's like more the tomboy. She's the one that put up most of the fight because she fought back against Natalia, hit her with like the slingshot, also like kicked her. So this is probably like the softest Bruce has ever had an approach to kind of a villain, because he's like, I don't want to hurt you, because he's like, regardless of her circumstances and regardless of her superhuman strength, she's still a child, and he's just trying not to hurt her, because he's like, because her ability, like I said, some versions have used the whole vampiric thing. I don't know if she later became that in later versions of the comics, but adaptations have kind of seen her in that capacity. I don't know if her brother made her the way, because like the whole like absorbing thing, like her, from what I quick Google, her main powers is like a pheromone control and teleportation was like the main. Like I said, I don't know if that's applicable to every version of that character in the comics or what. But for her to kind of be used vampirically in some adaptations makes me feel like that must be a more recent comic thing of her being like more vampiric or something like that, because she has like more translucent skin. Not translucent, but like her skin is much more like, it is pretty white from like everything because of her situation. Like I said, in the show they've made it more of an illness. So obviously Bruce is handling this with like kind of kid gloves, but then like he tells her Anton said, she's like, what? No, you're lying. She's like, no, I didn't. He can't be dead. He's the only family she had. Like, she was angry, but she didn't mean to kill him. It was an accident. And so when the sun was coming out, she's just like, leave me alone, because she felt like a monster in that moment. She's like, let me go. Like, I have nothing to live for. And Bruce still decides to save her. And even Carrie's like, oh, leave her behind. She's a monster. But I think it's like, once again, Bruce has his sensitive spot, because I think he sees like, right, she's not a bad person. She is sadly a victim. It's not like she killed anyone that we're aware of. It's not a great thing that she does, but it's not, it could be worse. She could be killing these kids. I mean, she kind of was actually contemplating doing it, because her brother was like, yeah, these kids, they're going to be looking for them. We can't leave until they find those kids. And if they do, like, those kids are going to like say something the moment they're fully awake. She's like, okay, so we'll make sure they don't wake up. So she kind of lost herself in that moment. I guess like the more she was feeding, the more it just kind of gave into her. Like, who knows how long she's been doing this whole process. Maybe I'm misremembering. Like, didn't her brother kind of hint that he kind of, because the affliction is just a disease thing, but being able to absorb like energy life. I don't know if that's something she just naturally gained, or whether her brother, like, for whatever reason, like I said, they might have said this in an episode, or maybe I'm just like full of shit. I might have just pulled it out of my ass, but the whole element of he might have made her that way. Like I said, I could be completely wrong. I might be like conflating that with something else. But like I said, I think Bruce kind of saw like, right, you're not a monster. You're just as an angry kid. I'm sure after everything that he went through, it's kind of like you made a mistake. You're sick, and your circumstances, like, kind of like a parallel a little bit to like Barbara last episode, kind of being like their circumstantial stuff. I think kind of Bruce kind of saw that a little bit this episode. So we do know, like, all the kids that were kidnapped and energy absorbed were fine, but Natalia is being studied. They're going to try and find a way to help her, but it's still going to be a thing of, yeah, she's going to have to live with, not only is her brother dead, she accidentally killed him. They're going to have to live with that guilt on top of everything. So oh, I should also note that McKenna Grace voices Nocturne, which I thought was interesting, because I was just trying to remember. I was like, I knew it was someone specific that I was like, oh, I recognized the actress, but I couldn't remember off the top of my head who it was. But yeah, McKenna Grace. I was like, oh, that's neat. Either way, tangents and all that aside. So aside from that, we had the Thorne side of things when it came to Harvey. He's going to make a big donation. The way he made it sound, I initially thought this was a money laundering thing, where it's like, okay, yeah, you take some of the money you're getting from these donations and you mix in mine. I mean, there could be an element of money laundering there, but I thought that was the purpose of the money. But it's like, no, like, this way people think the money came from the carnival thing, your fundraising. But it's like, no, we gave you an infusion, but it comes with a stipulation. There's a guy, Matt Milligan, that needs to be, like, gotta get let the case against him disappear, which Harvey was having some very moral confliction with. So it's like, right. And Thorne is making this point of, right, reform doesn't come cheap. So it's like, right, keep yourself in the mayorship and then you can make the changes you want. But it's like, yeah, but Rupert wants you to be in that position so he can have someone forever in his pocket. And also, he's going to want reforms that benefit him and the people connected. So Milligan must be someone, I don't know if he's necessarily one of Rupert's boys, or whether or not it's a thing of, you're just like a fellow criminal that I do business. I don't know if he works directly under Rupert, or whether Milligan is just kind of, because apparently he's on trial for like fleecing half of Gotham of their money. I don't know if it was like a Ponzi scheme type of thing or what. And when you saw him in court, he did not seem apologetic at all. Because he knew the fix was in, so he's looking like, yeah, go ahead, do the thing. And I was curious if Harvey would. Surprising, Harvey did not. Harvey did not fold. It's like, no, like I said, that he seems scummy, but it does seem like, even though he's going about things like the scummy route, and I think even he would say like, hey, I might not have always been the best. I might come off a little scummy. I'm maybe not as altruistic. Altruistic is the word I've been trying to think of previously, because I was always like philanthropic, but I was like altruistic. Nevertheless, I'm not be as altruistic as someone like a Barbara when it comes to the law and stuff. But yeah, I might come off slime ballish. I might do some slime ballish stuff. But it's like, I step over the line the tiniest bit. I never fully cross it. Like I've said previously, bit not fully crooked. So, and we see it in this moment where it's like, yes, I mean, he has stood on his ground on, like, he doesn't want to compromise stuff. Like, yes, he's compromised himself a little, but once again, how far over the line am I willing to go? And this was a line he refused to draw. So, I don't know if Thorne gave him the go-ahead to do this, but his right-hand guy, Tony, threw acid in his face. I don't know if that's typically how that goes for Dent. I don't know if it's like doesn't he usually fall in like a vat of acid or something like that? But once again, because I was like, I know that happens to Harley. So I was like, I remember the parallel of like Dent, but I don't know if that, or if just it getting thrown in his face is how it typically happens. I don't know. I'm sure like every version does it a little different, but I knew that wasn't going to end well for him. I just wasn't expecting him to do it at the end of this episode. Because, spoilers, I saw a thumbnail for a future episode. It might even be the next episode where he's already Two-Face. So I was like, I knew it was happening, but I thought it might happen next episode. Wasn't expecting him to, like, leave you on a cliffhanger of, and Two-Face. So, yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting to see where, obviously, that all takes us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.